Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 543rd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we've got Brian Podolak, CEO of Vocodia, and he's offering the 1,000 call challenge. So stay tuned. It's a great challenge, and it's a great topic because we're talking about prospecting, cold calls. We're talking about artificial intelligence, when and where and how to use tools like this versus regular humans, how he built this and what the results have been and what he thinks they're going to be moving forward in this post-dictatorial government COVID world, which I think is opening up. Finally, people have had enough. I know I've had enough, but I digress. It's a good episode. A great guy. He introduced me, fortunately, to Ben Gay III. Ben is coming up after Brian. He'll be episode 544, and it'll be the longest ever. Ben Gay III was Zig Ziglar's boss. He was personally mentored by Napoleon Hill for at least 2 years, and I had him on back-to-back. So it'll be over 2 hours. I'm just going to make it one big episode, I think. So stay tuned for that. So I appreciate Brian making that introduction. But I don't want to take anything away from Brian. He's got a very interesting background, managed a huge call center. He has some great insight on hiring, what people are looking for today, how to get quality people, and grow your business. So you're in for a treat. If you are a sales manager or an entrepreneur, in the past I've mentioned, I've had a program for a long time. I haven't mentioned it in a while. It's called No More Sales Duds. I am rebranding it as Find Your Sales Pro. And I've owned both names for a while, but when I first created it, it was called No More Sales Duds. So, and then not long after, I've experimented with the positive name, Find Your Sales Pro versus No More Sales Duds. And there's benefits to having the verb, the action in the name, and all the marketing fundamentals that I teach. But, I created the program because somebody had landed a dud, and it just hit me. I was like, okay, no more sales duds. But if you want to avail yourself of that little program, once I tweak it, I'm going to raise the price. But it's all good content, and if you order it now, as I make the changes, you're grandfathered in. You get access to any of the updates. So check that out. Okay, nomoresalesduds.com. You'll see it. You'll see the mentioning of Find Your Sales Pro. So I'm mostly through the rebranding, but not yet. But I mentioned that because we're talking about onboarding people. Brian was doing it with call centers. I'm geared more towards helping you find more of a professional salesperson, and it's an easy program to get through. You can click around. There are forms. There are templates. I'm working with one of my Power Day clients. It's a $9,000 program, and I'm working the exact process with him right now. And that's not the only thing, but hiring salespeople is a big need of his that we've uncovered. And his lack of a process, his Me Too kind of advertising and verbiage, it just wasn't popping. It wasn't unique. His personality wasn't coming through. The real opportunity wasn't coming through, so he wasn't getting great candidates. So No More Sales Duds, Find Your Sales Pro is meant to fix that once and for all, help you advertise for, screen, interview, sort, sift, and separate, onboard, motivate, and retain top sales talent. All right, so go get you some of that, and then let me know if you need additional help. And then once you get that, nomoresalesduds.com, come on back and listen to this interview with Brian. But before we do that, you may notice that the numbering is off. This should be episode 550, but I said 543, and I am not crazy. This was supposed to be episode 543. You may or may not remember I was testing a company for 90 days on the production and promotion of the podcast. They did not work out, did not like their work. And here's one example. This was supposed to be published on February 7th. And alas, it was not. So I just found it. I was about to get ready to record the intro to episode 550, which is a good one, with Robert Cattell. And I'm still doing that one. But I realize we didn't go live with Brian. So Brian is the guy that introduced me to Ben Gay III. So Ben, we went live on episode 544. Back again in early mid-February, February 11th, I think. And that was the epic, 2.5 hour interview. So Brian hangs out with good people, and his software is cool, Vocodia. I've signed up as a partner with them, so I am diving deep into what they do. So good guy, good episode. So hang on to your hat. Here we go. Brian Podolak, CEO of Vocodia. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So, man, this is interesting. We're going to discuss your 1,000 call challenge. We're going to get into 15 years in Costa Rica. So I'm looking at your LinkedIn. You managed a 400 agent call center. Is that right?
Yeah, at our peak was 600 agents. Correct. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you did that for a little while. But that's relatively recent, right? That was 2017, 2018 when you came back to the States, huh?
Correct. Absolutely. You decided to come back and reestablish a technology company here instead.
Nice. So I want to talk about a lot of things. So you got to talk fast, okay?
I can do that.
So because first of all, I want to discuss that transition. Okay, there's a lot of people now in this post-COVID world. We keep hearing about the Great Resignation. People are trying to go do their own thing. How did you make that transition from? Because were you an employee at the call center, but now you got your own thing?
So what happened is I was offered a consultant job for 2 weeks in Costa Rica, like 17 years ago. I went for 2 weeks and stayed for 2 more weeks. And the second month, the owner of the center, who was an investor really and just didn't really want to do the day-to-day, we renegotiated and I wound up taking 10% and then 20%. And over the course of the year, I wound up taking over. And then went from there. So it became from consultant to owner over the next 12 months or so.
Oh, that's cool.
And at the time we had about 20 agents when I got there. By the time he exited, and we stayed friends, of course, it was a great relationship. We were about 120, 150, somewhere in there, and just kept growing. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from that experience? Because technically, you didn't start it, but you certainly grew the crap out of it.
Correct.
But now you're a founder, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, myself and Jimmy Sposato, my co-founder of Vocodia, the two of us are doing this one together. Yeah.
Okay. So what were the lessons learned? What did you apply from those 15 years that helped you become a founder?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, as a native New Yorker, to tell from my speech sometimes, going to Costa Rica, which is more of an island type mentality, I definitely had to learn patience. And I also had to learn to deal with a culture that's not motivated by money. Literally, if there's enough money for beer for the weekend, I don't need the overtime. I'm good boss, right? So it took a long time to adjust to that culture, probably a good year. And then I learned, hey, this is how you motivate people, not necessarily always financially. There is other ways to motivate employees. And sorry, it took me so long to learn that lesson, but it's something that's very important that I've learned to this day. And even when Jimmy and I started this company, we decided one of the first things we're going to do, which is kind of hard to do with a startup, is to make sure our employees have a good quality of life so they don't burn out. So we took a little bit of a risk and have given every employee, for example, unlimited vacation time. There's no limit. If you want to take 6 weeks, that's fine, as long as, you get things done. And we've tried to use some of the things I learned in Costa Rica to apply coming back here to the States. So the culture definitely helped me relax a little bit, calm down a bit, probably healthier. That was a big adjustment. The second one was obviously the time change, right? Costa Rica doesn't do daylight savings times. And when the States do, we have to go back and forth. And that was kind of interesting, how to adjust those schedules. And then also dealing in Central America, things you don't think about in the States, that location of that center was key that we were always within 2 bus stops of most of the area, because not everybody drives. No one's going to want to drive, say 3-4 bus stops back and forth to get to work. So there's a lot of neat learning experiences, but definitely number one, how to help motivate employees without always being a financial adjustment there. Yeah.
So is that, working with people that aren't motivated by money? Because we keep hearing like millennials and even other demographics are reevaluating their lives, and millennials are more looking for culture and impact and mission. Are you seeing that, now that you're back in the States and growing this new business, and is that helping you?
100%. Definitely saw it, pre-COVID. I think since COVID, it's a totally different world. I think nobody wants to spend 3 hours driving back and forth to work every day. So, and as a startup, and as being a little bit of an older guy, though, I like to have that face-to-face and in the room on the whiteboard, planning things out. So we've definitely had to adjust because employees want to, work from home. And I understand why too, by the way. I remember those drives back and forth to Miami, an hour and a half each way, and it just burns you out. It's a lot of your time wasted. So I think that's a big change. And like you said, you're not going to find a good, quote unquote, $10 an hour employee. People are realizing their worth and they're looking to get paid for that. And I think it's actually a positive thing. I really do. Our company made a decision not to have any employees under $35,000 a year. Now, again, we're a startup, and that's a hard decision to make, especially if you think you could find somebody a little cheaper. But we wanted, again, to encourage that this is a good place to work. And the work itself is extremely exciting and fulfilling. Everybody who sees what we're doing and how we're doing it wants to jump on board, but that's just not enough. The company's mission and what the company does is just one piece of the puzzle. And if you can't really be on the high end of the competitive salaries like some of the bigger companies, what can you do in that culture to encourage people? Well, flexible hours, a little extra vacation time, making sure you have really good health insurance. Even though we were under the 50 minimum, we still made sure we got benefits for everybody. So we're doing the best with the resources we have.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you make that happen? Because, when you are a startup, you got to pinch pennies, right? And it's great to buy America, right? It's great to be able to do that. You don't have the supply chain issues, right? Everything's local, right. But it's a hell of a lot more expensive. I look at, I do jujitsu. I work with this company called Origin out of Maine. Mm-hmm. And, one of their high-end gis, even like not even necessarily the top end, is 4 or 5 times more expensive.
Absolutely.
Than what I can buy online if I don't care who makes it.
Yeah.
Right. They've got work boots, which I love. Yeah. We've every Black Friday, that's the only day that Red Wings, the boot company, does a sale. It's literally the only day they do a sale all year long. And maybe the whole weekend, and it's like 20% off, I think, so with a big family, 7 kids, 2 boys, we wait for sales.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And I've got a pair I love, waterproof, steel toe. Rugged. My son's got a couple pairs, and but Origin, they're and they might be a couple $100, so you get 20% off. So all right, and lifetime, blah blah blah. Origin will be $300, $400
sure
for their boots, and it's like, holy cow, how do you make that work? Because even you're talking about health insurance, so that's still money, right? That's still an expense, because you look at the fully burdened cost of an employee, so you literally might have to say, okay, we're only going to hire 2 people instead of 3, or 3 instead of 4. Can you just get more work out of them because they're more motivated, because they feel more valued? Is that what you're seeing?
We did as a hybrid approach. So basically our system, it's all proprietary, the NLP and all the other AI, as I like to tell people not familiar with the industry, all the buzzwords, right, is in-house. And we kept our American developers around that piece. How we connected the phone switch, the VoIP and all, we hired that team out of Pakistan. Our chief technical officer, Omar Khan, great guy, happened to have contacts there. So by keeping that team in Pakistan and keeping those costs low, it allowed us to allow a little more to be spent on our U.S. and we just kind of balanced it. We're balancing that every month. Our CFO who just started will tell you we have more balancing to do. But that's just kind of what we did. We figured everybody that's here, we'll give the best, and if we just can't afford it, then we'll put it offshore until it makes sense to bring it onshore. Or right now, we're very happy with that offshore team, and it's given this whole world has been impacted, right? So the fact that We now have a group of about, I think it's like 15 or 17 over there in Pakistan doing an amazing job, by the way. Great people. And that's allowed us to spend a little more on the benefits here. So that's kind of how we balanced it.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
So you're working in the world of cold calling, right?
Basically, yeah, we the different, telecommunications law, but yeah, for a business, it is a cold call, right? You just call to introduce yourself, set an appointment, get through that gatekeeper. On a B2C campaign, it's usually a lead coming in, just calling back and qualifying, right? And we see some of our car dealers right now, again, having a hard time to find people to work. Leads are coming in to buy cars and people aren't calling the leads back. As a salesperson, that lead not being called within a minute is like a long time. So we're using our system to basically call these leads back or to cold call, get through that gatekeeper and either set an appointment or do a transfer to a sales rep who can take the call from there. And that allows the sales rep to be more effective and use their time better, right? If you spend 4 hours dialing and not pitching, right, and you're not getting that presentation off, I think most salespeople, for every 10 presentations or demos they do, they get one deal. That's kind of a rule of thumb, right? Well, 10% is a rough number. So if you're just trying to call to get those 10 presentations booked, that's a lot of your time gone. But if you could use, get one extra presentation a day, that's an extra 2 sales a month. It makes a big difference. So the AI that we've built, which is very conversational and human-like, allows that salesperson to do what they do best, which is pitching and not just prospecting.
So are you primarily in the B2C space or does it work B2B?
It works both. It took us a while to figure out how to get to that gatekeeper, ask for the person, be on hold, wait to get transferred. Now are we on with the right person or not? Especially where you just have, let's say, an office number and you got to kind of weed through it. And I'd say we get through about 80 to 90% of the time we're effective. And there's another 10, 20% that requires a human to call those back, where just maybe the systems are a little more complex. But definitely for every dollar spent and the dollar that the clients are making, it's working out. They always look at that, what they call a return on advertising spent. So usually if you spend $1 with me, you want to get back between $2 and $4 in revenue. And that's kind of usually where it falls out.
Nice.
Sometimes higher. We have one that's 1 in 10, which is great. But for the most part, it's usually quadruples your money.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I know they've always pushed back on cold calling, on outbound calls.
Sure.
I see some guys, prominent people, saying, "Oh, I do big deals. I close VC funding all with text and chat and no calls." Yeah, and it's like, yeah, dude, you do, but it's like you're a freaking guru,
right?
If I'm selling roofing or I'm a general contractor, I'm a dentist. I mean, although, I do confirm my teeth cleaning with my dentist, but that was a referral because my neighbor worked there.
Sure.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to have some communications. Like the whole world is not going to go text and chat bots.
No. What I've noticed since COVID is I barely get phone calls. Everyone wants to do a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, right? It's just like, hey, let's do a Zoom for 5 minutes. I'm like, call my phone. So, but however, we know that that's not the only way to contact people today, right? There is texting, there is email. So we do have a true omni-channel approach. So for example, if I called you and you had filled out a lead for, health insurance as an example, and I called you back and this number calls you back that you may not recognize. It doesn't say scam likely, but still a phone number you don't know, you're probably not going to answer it because you're like, who is this? You want to hear the message. So what our system will do is on a no answer, we'll leave a voicemail. And then assuming it's TCPA compliant, we'll also send a text. Hi, this is Brian about your health insurance quote. Click the link when you're ready for a call. And the nice thing about this is when they click that link, they have a few options. They could have a call back tomorrow at 2, kind of like how Calendly works, but there's also a call now button. And you'd be surprised, people you call on a Monday, they only called once, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are still saying, call me now, because it's when it's convenient for them. Remember, when you're doing that outbound call, even if the guy filled out a lead a minute ago, he might be in his car, wants health insurance, hit send, and I'll deal with it later. So the ability to give the consumer to say, call me now, I'm ready to talk by a click of a button, I think is unique. And then but if they schedule it for Friday at 2:00, Friday at 1:55, they get a next text reminder, they get an email reminder. And we're now working on probably done by second quarter, that social media approach, like LinkedIn. Hey, calling in and actually having a chat conversation with our AI, same brain, just multiple, just like a human, right? We can call, we could talk. We're building all that in. So we really want to consider it a contact solution more than a call center solution. But because of our background, we started with that first. And outbound sales, I still haven't seen a AI solution like ours that works. I've seen a lot of inbound customer service type AIs, but those are easy. People call in and are saying, I lost my credit card, But in outbound sales, objections come from everywhere, right? So it was much more challenging, but we're very excited about the technology.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's growing exponentially, probably following Moore's law, or maybe even beating that, because we're so early in this, huh? Because you mentioned you got this 100 or 1,000 call challenge.
Sure.
So elaborate on that for me.
Absolutely. So when you first start off with AI, people are looking for that human conversational type quality. I'm extremely animated when I talk or when I speak, as I'm sure you could tell sometimes. And not everybody's like that on the phone. And sometimes it's too cartoony, as some would say. So when you tell a client, hey, I have an AI, it's truly conversational, and then I play them a recording, every single person will say, well, that sounds like AI, right? Because I've told you it's AI. However, I can't tell you how many clients I've cold called with our DSA technology to get transferred to me that haven't picked it up. So what we did is we used to do our 1,000 call challenge. Hey, listen, Mr. Client, no problem. Don't pay me any money today. Don't even sign the agreement. We're going to go ahead and install the technology. We're going to build it, which is a big cost to us. But if it works, will you pay going forward? Of course, right? So as long as that's the agreement, we'll turn it on and we'll make 1,000 phone calls at no charge, no obligation. And I say, if anybody could tell that it's a bot, you get a free month. But more importantly, if it works, you pay us going forward. We've won 100% of the time. Knock on wood. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I see one of the big things now on TikTok and Instagram, like you see these reels, and the voice is so irritating. It's the same female or male.
Oh, yeah.
Watch as they hug this new billy goat. It's like, oh my gosh. It's just, but it's out there. It's prevalent. So I'm hoping and assuming yours isn't that robotic.
It is not. It's actually customized. One of the unique things is we could actually, for example, take my own voice, clone it, and have the call, right? Let's say, so I do a pre-call to a client. Mr. Client, you filled out this lead. You're interested in Vocodia services. Do you use a fronter model now? 4 or 5 qualifying questions. One of the fun things you could do is like, okay, hold on while I transfer you to my human self. And then they're like, what's that? Or you can also just say, hold on, let me adjust my headset. Then pick up as a live person and keep going. There's a lot of unique, fun things you could do with it. And then of course, now you start going down that ethical area, like how ethical is it? So some of our clients, when people ask, are you a bot? Which happens every 4,000 or 5,000 calls, somebody might guess or think, it could say, yes. It could say, I'm a customer service assistant, etc. But I will tell you, there's also a lot of processes where people actually prefer to speak to our DSA technology than a human. As an example, let's just say, you lost your job through COVID or whatever, you're behind on your bills. Well, those debt collectors start calling, right? And they don't want to hear your sob story, and they really don't. And it's embarrassing. It could be embarrassing, right? You're like, I want to pay my bills. I'm not a bum, but I'm just having a financial difficulty. Well, how much nicer is it to talk to a non-human and just make some payment arrangements or reschedule? I think sometimes it's a little easier for humans to talk to a non-human. But we've also had cases. We have a client that's a hedge fund that uses it to open accounts for themselves. And they've actually sent me something. I have a screenshot. It's great. It's in my profile where they said, hey, Brian, I got a problem. The customer talked to me, wanted to go back to the DSA. And I tried to explain to them that's AI. And they got mad at me and hung up. So there is sometimes too much of the human element, in there. But there's use cases for just about everybody.
Yeah, sure. And so can their names and whatnot be merged in? Because I've been in this long enough. I'll get the video email and say,
sure.
Hi, but they never say your name. Right? Or they'll even do a mail merge, like a whiteboard. Hi, Wes. But it's like, I know that's all fake. I'm like, take a hike.
It's funny you mentioned that. When we first built this and we wanted to be conversational, we were looking at some of the early adopters of this technology a few years ago. They would call, hey, how are you? And you'd say, I'm fine. And they would say, the reason for my call is, and they never acknowledged what the client was saying. And by the way, even in sales, right, it's so important when a client gives you their social security number, their date of birth, their first name, to say thank you, to acknowledge that they gave you something. They did. They gave you some information that helps us to be able to do our job. So we notice a lot of these were a little too stoic just in the presentation. So for example, on ours says, how are you? And you say, I'm good. He'll say, glad to hear it. But if you say, I'm good, how are you? I'm great. Thank you for asking. Actually acknowledging what that customer's saying. So that conversation ability, number one, was the first thing we did. Number two, the personalization. Hello, Bob. Hello, Fred. How are you? One of the funny things in the beginning is we used to have what we used to call the made line test, because some of the earlier technologies would take the name Madeline and pronounce it made line, right? So there's every so often be that name or two that may get mispronounced, but yes, we could personalize it. We could tie into a client's CRM or their software to actually say, hello, Mr. Customer, what's your date of birth, your last four social, I've confirmed your identity, here's your account balance of 5,200. We can actually personalize, and we call this a tokenization of all the data that the client needs to get a hold of.
Yeah, that's funny. But even as humans, though, we'll mess up on names. Like I didn't know how to pronounce your name, but I had to ask on the last name.
Absolutely.
So it's not like it has to be perfect, because heck, we screw it up as humans.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Even if you have humans on the phone, depending on the campaign you're running, in our center, for about every 20 agents, we had one supervisor. That was like standby to what we call a TO, or take over that call, right? I'm stuck. The guy's extremely upset, whatever that case may be. We still see the same with AI. Maybe instead of 1 in 20, maybe you need 1 in every 25. It's going to get asked a question it doesn't know. What color is the sky? Broccoli, carrots. And the AI is going to go, what the heck is this? And we didn't want it to put it into a loop. You've been in those IVR loops and you just get annoyed. So one of the things we like to do is we try to answer it the first time. If the second time the client's not happy with the answer, we say, hey, you know what? That's a great question. I'm not sure. I don't have the right answer. Let me get my supervisor for you. So we TO the calls real quick. But we're always listening and we're always learning. So at the end of the day or the week, we'll go, Mr. Customer, we heard all these questions that got TO'd that we didn't know how to reply. We heard your people. Here's some of the responses. Are those compliant and everything? Because listen, I've heard myself on the phone a couple of times and I've said, what did I say? Right? Because you're in the spiel, right? You're talking, you're not thinking. And it's okay. So it's not always malicious. We're all human. So we always want a supervisor or somebody in management to verify the information we put into that system, because it's going to get repeated over and over again.
Well, and you see it too, not as much anymore, because Siri and Alexa and whatever have been out, but there's all kind of funny videos, hey, Siri, do you love me or whatever? And then they'll ask it. But they've come up with funny replies, but that's $1 trillion company with a, long track record to roll this out.
Sure. Well, you'd be surprised how many people ask us, say potato, to try to trick us, and I'll go potato or potato, kind of make those kind of jokes. So we have a lot of those things. We also have to deal with the people who talk a little R-rated, shall we say, and let's keep things professional, because, you got those kind of comments. But again, the system's always learning. And one of our keys to success is that we're able to take 500 or 1,000 recordings from a client to help train the AI model on other questions and answers that's not going to be on that scripts. That's not in the rebuttals. I'm sure we've all trained salespeople. You give them a couple of days of training. Maybe they shadow by listening to somebody for a day or two, but it almost never fails their first call. They get asked a question they don't know, right? Yeah. So that first week, they're going to ask a lot of questions, but within 3 months, it's really not going to happen that often. And that's the great thing about this AI. The first month, you might need a little more of supervisors, but by month 2 or 3, you need maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 25, and 1 in 30. So it gets more and more efficient. And unlike humans, you only train it once.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, and I've told people, I've been working in the CRM space since 2007, working with Infusionsoft since 2008, HubSpot since 2014. I've always told people, I've told them straight up, said, look, so like, how quick can we get up and running? And I tell them 30 minutes. Yeah. What? I'm like, yeah, I can build you a web form on a contact us and embed it in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you'll be quote unquote up and running. I'm like, but I'm sure you mean more than that, right? Efficient, productive, beginning some level of mastery, or at least confidence of what you're doing, right? And I tell them 90 days. I say, plan to work harder than you've ever worked on your business for the next 90 days.
Yeah.
I say, because we're going to be, because it was like a baby form of AI, right? Creating automation is the foundation, right, of AI. You're trying to look ahead, kind of predict, and give people what they want before they even know they want it.
Exactly.
And I'm telling them, I mean, most businesses, certainly small businesses, but I've been shocked at big businesses at the lack of systems and processes. They're literally just winging it. They got lucky. They had a hot product or an offering, and they just exploded. And just get us a body. Somebody's got to answer the phone. Need somebody on that computer entering the data.
Yeah,
and then it's not scalable.
Correct.
So they start looking for solutions, but then they want to, they want to point the finger. Oh, well, your software sucks. It's like, dude, you gave us no scripting, no nothing. We're figuring this out on the fly, having to listen. You said all your people are trained, but you gave us 20 people and like 2 of them are any good.
Right.
We've got crap that we're listening to, and we're having to sort out, so don't blame me, but it's hard to tell a paying customer, don't blame me, but it's easier if you tell them up front before they give you the money, right? Listen, you're probably an idiot, but that's okay. If you're a successful idiot, I'm going to make you a better, more successful and less of an idiot, but we're going to have some hard conversations for the next 90 days.
and that's why it's funny, because with our clients, it's the same thing. They tell you they have the script and rebuttals, but we actually don't take on a client who won't give us recordings to learn from, and we'll sign the proper paperwork, because there's so much on those recordings that's really happening on the call. Sometimes that script's 2 years old, and I can't tell you how many times I've had a script, I listen to recordings, and no one's even close to following the script. There might be the bullet point, like, what's your name? But how they got there is totally different. So there's 9 or 10 different approaches. The other great thing about AI is we never just start with, let's say, one script. We always start with at least two little various scripts, different rebuttals, different voices, so we can test them. And never before have you had that ability to say, hey, I wonder if we answered the question this way, what would happen? And you tell your 100 people on the phone, everybody starts saying this today. They might remember for a call or two, but they go back. They're human. They're going back to what's comfortable. The AI could actually test lots of different responses, lots of different scripts, different answers, different handoffs, just everything. And over time, we get so much data. Hey, I learned if I call somebody in Iowa, I want to talk more like this. But when I'm talking to a New Yorker, I better talk quick like I usually do. And then in South Florida, you're kind of in the middle there. So, the regions matter. Our AI is starting to tie into external points. For example, if there was that horrible tornado that happened, do you want to be calling people in the middle of a tornado? That's a bad guy, right? So stop calling. So there's a lot of intelligence that we're building on with external data points also to make the AI more efficient.
Man, I was a stockbroker when I left the Air Force in 97.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I moved to Mobile, Alabama to be near my dad.
Okay.
Didn't know a soul. I'm cold calling. I've got a wife. I've got an infant son, and I got to make money.
Sure.
Right. So I go in on a Saturday and start cold calling, and I'm calling in Alabama. And what's going on in October on a Saturday in Alabama? Football games.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I played football in college. Yeah. I understand the importance of Southeastern Conference football.
Sure.
But when you got a family to feed, like, it literally wasn't on my mind. I didn't know there was a game.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to go make some money. And man, I got my ass chewed. Do not call me when the game is on. I was like, oh my gosh.
100%. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You better know where you're calling, huh?
Yeah. And the time of day, right? How would you do make bank then? 300 to 500 calls a day to get 5 or 10 packages out and hope to get, one depositor, 2 or 3 a week. So picture, if you had the AI at that time, you're only talking to people who actually did want to just talk to you. Just even if the simple thing is, hi, do you want to talk? Yes. Just that is huge, right? Just that talk time is important. Extra hour of talk time you get a sales rep is huge, no matter what product or service they're selling.
Yeah, it was such a grind. And even now I'm working with a guy that's got, does high-end training, does 3-day events, masterminds, thousands of dollars, 5-figure deals.
Sure.
And people sometimes are hard to reach. I mean, they watch a long video, they apply, they have to answer all these questions.
Sure.
And they're still hard to reach sometimes. It's like, what the heck is going on?
And then when you get on the phone, they're busy, right? So
they'll pick a time and still no show.
Yeah, of course.
Like, what the heck, dude?
Yeah, 100%. One of the other nice little side things we've noticed is a lot of times when you're evaluating if leads are good, if your agents are doing a good job, is to look at their average talk time per call, right? Their average call is 7 minutes. They're probably 7 selling deals. If their calls are 2 minutes, they're churning wood or whatever. What we notice with the AI is because it's a little more direct to the point, And it's not going to start giving the gift of gab like, oh, I heard you're from Alabama. Oh, I used to live there, right? And the salespeople go up all these tangents and et cetera. But clients want to get to the point nowadays. People want to be like, listen, I called about health insurance. Give me my quote. Let me go. I don't care that you grew up down the street from me. I don't care that you got a buck down the street. I don't care about Brian. I don't hear any more of your fishing trips. They want to get to the point. So the funny thing is when we turn on, a lot of clients are like, hey, that average talk time's too low. There must be a problem. But wait a minute, we're getting a lot of transfers. So the efficiency just goes up dramatically. We've heard claims of 3 to 4 times. I don't know if it's that high, but it's definitely very much more efficient just because it's getting to the point, sticking to it. And at the end of the day, that customer experience is just so much better.
So would you say that's kind of the case across the board right now, that people aren't as into small talk?
100%. I'd say in general, 100%. Obviously, I'm an older guy. I'm 49. I like the yap. I like to hear everybody, and I don't mind if we spend half an hour before we get to the point. But we've also had, like you talked about earlier, deals being done over text. Our technology does support texting, of course, just like voice, and it's the same conversation, and it can support a text. And the nice thing about text is, is if I get busy, I can come back to the conversation in half an hour, right? So I can, what's your name, Brian? Phone rang, handle that, come back, and go whatever. I definitely think our attention spans are, again, as a whole, are much shorter too. Right. I mean, that's why people like these 15, 20-minute shows compared to 1-hour shows more and so on and so forth. But I think the way that people are moving forward, and especially this new generation, it's get to the point, done and gone. Right. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I've always been a very direct, cut it quick. It's so funny. Like, I'm from the South. My wife's from California out here. And it's like we were born in the wrong state, because she's chatty and friendly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to buy or not? I got
to buy or die. Yeah. Like the old Lehman Brothers, right? That straight line persuasion system they used to do. And just get to the point and keep going, go, and just stay in that line and get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. And even so, I've been taking some calls for this guy in his program, and he's got a couple of other he's got some guys that are just salespeople, but I take the calls, but I also help run the events. Mm-hmm. So I don't take as many calls. But as he was ramping this up and bringing on a few people, I was the first that he brought on to help. And so I was taking the calls, and if people bought, they usually bought, we scheduled 30 minutes, but they usually bought within 10 minutes. If they're ready, they're ready. Right. And, he hires some other guys, more of a counseling background. They're like having 45-minute conversations. And I'm like, and they're paid commission. So straight commission. So I'm like, hey, knock yourself out, brother. But I'm not doing that. I'm not giving free counseling.
No. I consulted with a food service company here. It was one of these get your meals delivered to your house, 2-3 meals a day, and convenience, healthy, et cetera. And the product was delicious. I mean, it's amazing. But as you know, over the phone, how do you explain food's good and food's so subjective? So it's bottom line, people have to try it, right? If you're going to try it and you like it or not, just like a restaurant. I might like it, you may hate it. It just is what it is. But I always thought was interesting is they're like, well, food is, consultative. You really got to get into it. And my average pitch was when somebody would call in, again, they're calling about the food, they're going to want to order. It was like 7 to 10 minutes all in. You get the address, delivery instructions, everything. And so these other people are averaging like 3 times because they're like, what are you trying to accomplish? The caloric intake, the macros. And I'm like, do they even care? They want food. They already know, here's the calories. They've already done their research. And obviously they ask a question, you answer it, but why bring it up? Why make that's the issue, I think. If a client brings up, address the concern. But why are you bringing up things they're not even bringing up for more discussion points, And again, I think clients, I want to order my food and go. I don't want to talk for half an hour.
No. That's so true. I learned that, man. It was, when was it? Late 2001, early 2002. I brought along a more senior sales guy to help me. We're still friends to this day. But we were demoing very complex, very expensive test and measurement equipment in the telecom industry. We were up we were at Sprint, I think. I know we were up in that area. I think we might have been with a contractor though. And so we had a quick meeting. The guy liked it. And so he's sold.
Yeah.
And I'm still young and hungry and new at this. And I'm like, hey, you want to see features M through Z? And the customer's like, well, yeah, I've got time. My buddy, he chewed my ass when we got out of there, man. He's like, fortunately, everything went well, right? But he's like, that dude was sold. He's like, and you start doing demos and, things start breaking and you just never know. And it's like, so, okay, you're right.
I think that's one of the hardest things for most of us that have that gift of gab is to know when to shut up. I mean, there's an old expression, the first to talk loses, and it's so true. I've proved it over the phone all the time where somebody asks a question, you answer, and then and I'll do this like this to myself even, put my hand over my mouth and make sure everybody doesn't say a word and just wait, and the customer needs 15 to 30 seconds to digest it. Let them have that time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're talking, but because they're thinking of something else, they're not really listening to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's another key to sales that I think a lot of us miss is just the art of listening. A lot of us listen to reply and not listen to understand, especially in sales, right? You're like, oh, here comes that rebuttal. I already know what to say. And before they finish, we start talking over them, right? I mean, we're all sales guys, but we've all done it before, and sales women, of course. We all have that alpha type personality. We want to control things. But I've noticed if I just stop, listen, and even when the client's question's done, I count to 3 now, sometimes 5, before I reply, just in case they have another little blurb they want to put out. And then explain that question back to them, making sure that you really heard what they said before coming up with an answer. And I think that's one of the great things that a lot of people don't do, where the AI has to listen.
Yeah.
So it's forcing it to one of the most important things that we have to do, which is just learning to listen.
Yeah, that's true. It's so funny. I've worked from home forever. And the whole time I've had the sales whisperer, since 2006.
Wow.
And 7 kids at home with a dog.
Yeah.
It's usually noisy. And so like by default, I always hit mute.
Yeah.
Doing these interviews, you'll see I learned Command Shift A, boom, puts me on mute because I'm typing notes and making a blog post out of this, and I can type kind of fast, so then it's loud,
right?
But before I learned the Command Shift A, and even sometimes, even now, like if a guest or a client, prospect, they'll end early. Because I think I know where they're going, and I can't tell you how many times I couldn't get to the unmute button quick enough. Maybe I'm on my phone, right, and the screen goes dark. Right? Oh, you got to wake it up. Then, but that little half second delay, the prospect hears it, and so they think they have to keep talking.
Correct,
and then they will.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've just gotten more info out of a prospect just because I couldn't get to the unmute button quick enough.
It's important lesson to learn the lesson. I mean, it's funny. I've been talking about it a lot to our sales team. I'm like, when you're asking these questions, ask a question and just pause, like let them explain, and it's okay. Because a lot of times you'll learn, because really saying the AI and it's conversational, that's easy. But what's the customer's real pain? Is it about saving money? Not really. I mean, over the last 2 years of COVID, the ability of employers to find people to work in some of these entry-level type jobs has been more of a challenge. And so therefore we're filling holes. But sometimes a client will tell me, I don't care about the cost. I mean, I'm saving money. I'm really more concerned about the compliance. I don't want my agent to accidentally say the F word. I don't want them to say the word free if they're in insurance. Like there's certain things. And again, not always intentional. We're all just human, but we do make mistakes. And in compliance, though, it could be a serious issue. The SEC, the FCC, and all these other feds out there, they're not going to say, oh, you're human, you made a mistake. They're going to say that you weren't compliant. Consistency. So I came up with what I call the 4 C's, which is being conversational, consistent, and compliant, which the big 3. And then, of course, cost effective at the end, because I just thought it would be a pricing issue, but it's not. That consistency and compliance is just so huge for people right now that it's usually. But if I talk about cost, I'm going to miss the fact that they care about compliance, right? So it's really important as a solution to really understand the client's needs and what's that pain so we can help it and then make them the hero.
Yeah, that's our job.
Yeah.
Rescue. So you said conversational, consistent, compliant, and cost saving?
Cost effective. Yeah. Those are 4 C's. I'd recently bought the wife a diamond and the 4 C's were in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's what we kind of came up with, I think that's important, in any solution that anybody needs, to look at what you're doing. And AI, especially on pre-sales, the conversational piece is huge. If it's just, like I said, like a script, hello, I'm calling about this, people are going to hang up. Yeah. They're just going to hang up. They're not going to talk to that. Yeah.
So who's ideal for you? Who should take your 1,000 call challenge? Is it big business? Is it small business? Is it the local chiropractor? I mean, who's ideal for you?
Great question. So we don't take any client that has under a 10 agent requirement, only because we don't mind working on the setup fee and all those type of things. A lot of times, as a startup, we'll even waive it, to get the client in. But it takes us a lot of time to create the AI. And for us to only have 2 or 3 agents then on it at this time with the technology, it doesn't make financial sense for us. So we just look for that 10 agent commitment. It's usually about a third of what you would pay a human. Here in Florida, for example, the minimum wage is $10 an hour, and we're cheaper than that. And the solution is all in. It includes all the VoIP. We include all the DID rotation and management. For example, if you're doing 100,000 calls, you might need 2,000 DIDs to rotate them, the scam likelies, et cetera. We do all the registration, so it shows up as your company name, so it's proper. It's a total turnkey solution, which also makes it great. So I like to say I'm that one neck to grab. I'm not going to point at your VoIP guy. I'm not going to point at your lead. As long as you have a working process that's already been running, that you already know your script, you know your rebuttals, you have your leads down, we're great. I always like to say I'm the gas of the fire. I'm not the spark, because the AI, something important for everybody to notice in any AI solution you're doing, whether it's with us or anybody else, keep in mind that these are models that need to be trained, and AI is still trained by humans in some way. If you hear about AI that helps detect cancerous compared to non-cancerous masses on a lung, well, that AI trained by looking at x-rays, knowing that, hey, or whatever scans that were, hey, these are definitely cancerous, these are not, so it can learn from them. So our AI needs to learn from what you have as a working model. Now, the great thing is we also have some really neat salespeople. One of our advisors and a shareholders, Ben Gay III. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Closers, one of my favorite sales books of all time. And he'll go in there and sometimes he'll say, hey, we have a go against Ben type contest where Ben will take your script and make his version of it, and we could run them both simultaneously and see what happens. And it's always an exciting prospect, but always make sure that you have that data. If you're going to try to do an AI implementation and you don't have recordings, you don't have a lot of data, it's probably not going to work, and you're going to waste your time and money, so more importantly,
Yeah, most don't have scripts, or it's mediocre, or it hasn't been updated or tested. My daughter is working at a restaurant. She's a server down in San Diego, in college, and she gets little bonuses and some nice perks for selling their beer membership, right?
Nice, yeah.
But they don't really give them a script. It's just, hey, you're a member of our club. So she called me. Oh, that reminds me. She goes back today. So she called me on Sunday, and she says, how do I sell this? So I had her give me all the benefits. I'm like, okay, open with this, right? And I said, look, go try this. Yeah. We may have to adjust it, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I was trying to explain to her how, a professional will stick with what works.
Absolutely.
And deliver it with enthusiasm every time.
Yeah.
And because the rookies just want to wing it. They want to get creative.
Correct.
But if it's working, stick with it. But I did tell her, I said, look, 10 to maybe even 20% of the time, you do need to try something new.
Absolutely.
Because maybe there is something better.
Absolutely. It's not like you're in that box and you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know is a very common thing, and we learn from that all the time. By the way, my sons have both worked at restaurants. I worked in restaurants. I think everybody should serve tables for at least a year, especially going to college. I think it makes people humble, and talk about learning sales and customer service. There's no better way to learn it than working in a restaurant. So that's great. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we always laugh because my wife did for many years through high school, college, even a little bit after college. She worked at Sizzler. So her and her cousin, they're like best friends. And but she would, everywhere we go, she'll have a good server. Say, I was a server in Sizzler. We're all like, okay, dads are the ones that are supposed to tell the same story over and over again. But she does. Yeah. But it's true.
My biggest charity is over tipping servers, because I appreciated that. So when I get that good service, that person is going to get a 30, 40, 50% tip sometimes, because I believe that money's going right to that person. I don't have to worry about it going to a charity where 90% spent on management. And I know as a server, I can't tell you how many times that $20, just some years ago, where that $20 tip was like, that's gas for today. Tomorrow I can get some milk on the way home. Right. So, it's unfortunately a thankless job, unfortunately, nobody goes to the manager to say that was a great server. Right. They always complain. So I always try to go out of my way to make sure that I even give that hey, when I speak to the manager, I just want to let you know, I know you don't hear this, but so-and-so was just awesome. you know. But then at the same time, you get to some people who are just like not even looking. Yeah, what do you want to order? And they're looking around and they don't care, or they're on their phone while you're trying to pay. It's definitely a different world we're in today compared to where it used to be. And I'd like to see it change, where it be a little more personable and a little more customer servicey. Yeah.
Yeah. It literally looked like this pizza owner. We were out on Friday. We got pizza, big crowd, and we were done. And this girl was bussing, and she had done a great job all night. And my son got engaged, so his family, like, we were going to make reservations for them, like something nice. They're like, oh no, we do pizza on Friday. Like, it's like we all went to get pizza for their engagement, right? Like, okay.
Love it.
So her dad, like, he invited, he said, I'm paying. He wouldn't take any money, right? And but I'm watching this girl just working her butt off. And so I go up to the manager and I'm like, hey, can you break a 20? He's like, oh yeah, 5. So yeah, it's just 5. So it's fine. And so I walked away because I had to wait for her. She had just walked to the very back. And I was like, just my luck. She'll be taking a break, right? Because she was there for a while. So I walked back and the manager looks up, like, oh, can I help? Whatever. And the girl walked up right then. I just handed her $5. And he saw that. And he was like, oh, like he was pleasantly shocked, but he was shocked.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, what's $5? I just ate for free.
100%. You know, that $5 to them, it could be a huge difference. It really could.
Yeah. And, but I just want, and I know he tipped, you know, as well, but I wanted her to get some, and I did it in front of the manager on purpose, right? I didn't want to just say how nice. I'm like, here's some cash.
Yeah.
I'm going to
prove the best way to say
it. Prove to you that you got a good worker here. You know, take care. And she was thrilled, you know, and I was always, I'm not demanding, right? I'm like, I'll take whatever you give me, you know, if it's terrible, but I mean, I'm pretty laid back. I don't do fancy orders, whatever's on the menu. I'm like, all right, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
But like, if service was bad pre-COVID, if service was bad, I'm like, I'm not giving you a big tip. Like, you got to earn it.
Yeah. 100%.
Post-COVID, especially my daughter working now, like, and I just saw this. My wife loved Chili's, man. We went to Chili's a week ago, and I counted, and fully 1/3 of the tables were empty.
Wow.
And it's because they don't have the back office. They don't, you know, back of the house, they call it. They don't have the chefs and the cooks.
Yeah.
They can get servers. They can't get enough people to cook. So 1/3 of the restaurant, and I think it was a Friday. It was a weekend. It was full.
Wow.
You know, we're standing room in the bar.
Right.
And in a line waiting to get in.
Wow.
But 1/3 was empty. You know? So now you got to be a little nicer, because it's not usually the server's fault when things are going wrong.
That's also when I'm not a big fan of when restaurants include the 15% or 20% on the bill, because I mean, once in a while work out, but I'm usually, you know, bigger tipper, but I would rather have some, again, earn it. You know, I
earn it.
It should be earned 100%, not just be, you know, expected.
Exactly. Well, I like that you earn it, that 1,000 call challenge. So I'll be linking to that. And so any final parting words of wisdom I should have asked you?
Actually, probably 1,000 more things, but I don't think we have 5 hours. But I will just say one more thing. Like, anybody looking at AI for their office, again, whether it's our solution or others, specifically on the phone there, make sure you understand exactly what your needs are. You know, the AI is not going to fix your problem. If you're having a sales issue, AI won't fix it. It'll help with volume. It'll help clean messes up, for example. But if you don't have a working sales cycle today, don't go into AI. I think that's the biggest mistake. You go in, you spend some money, you put in this AI system, and it doesn't work because, again, the AI was trained on what it needs. So make sure you get that process down. Make sure it's been working for at least 6 months. Make sure you understand your peaks and valleys. Then first look into an AI system. And we're more than happy to give a free consultation or demo at any time.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're recording this before Christmas, so I'll say Merry Christmas. And it'll go live after New Year. So Happy New Year.
Happy holidays to you.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. Have a good one.
So crazy to hear somebody say happy holidays. Here we are, March 23rd. But yeah, I interviewed him on the 21st of December. And like I said, it was supposed to go live February 7th. Now we're going live. I don't know. It may go out before midnight, but probably on the 24th. of March. But like I said, good guy. Lots of good content. I love the things he's working on, but I love how he's doing it. That's the nice thing. Once you get to a certain stage in life, you get to pick and choose who you work with. And, I'm looking forward to the vibe, right? The culture, the chemistry. So take him up on his 1,000 call challenge. The guy knows his stuff. AI is legit. I just interviewed a guy today that's going to go live now that I'm back totally in control. David Tall, he'll be episode 552, doing more stuff with AI. He runs at Verse.io. Way back on episode 233, I had Chris Orlob with Gong.io. I had Curious. So I've been looking at AI and how to use it in sales for almost 300 podcasts, so many years. It's here, right? Embrace it, leverage it, but keep the humanity in it. That's what David Tall and I got into today. Keep the humanity in what you do. If you need some help with that, hit me up. All right, it's so funny. I just took a call today. I got back from jiu-jitsu. Guy calls. My routine right now, so I'm growing. Got some great pomegranates. Got some great peaches, great lemons. Lemons out here are crazy. They always bloom. So I literally have 60, 70 lemons. I don't know. I want to say 50, but I literally gave away 20 lemons to my neighbor a month ago, and you couldn't even tell that I pulled any. So I don't know. I got a bunch. So I'm trimming it, shaping it, but they're already budding with new flowers. But so got the fruit trees coming along, but the lemons, they literally will start growing new lemons before I harvest the previous. So it's just always ongoing. It's cool to see. Peaches, though, and pomegranates only have one season. But, taking care of the yard. I get back from jiu-jitsu. It's warming up now. Get a little sun. I go pull the dandelions. Pull the dandelions by hand. Growing in the yard. Because if you do it, you stay on top of it, there's only 3 or 4 in the backyard each day and 5 to 10 in the front yard. So not too crazy. But so I get out there and a call comes through and I answer it. And the guy, I'm learning to not be irritated with people on the phone with bad phone etiquette. So make sure you have good phone etiquette, all right? But the guy really kind of mumbles around and I'm like, what's going on? And he was referred to me through a group that we're both in. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he didn't know I was in that group. He was referred by the group because I'm not very active in them anymore. But, I went through their program, and so we're kind of kindred spirits. So he totally relaxed. He didn't know I'd gone through it, but he's like, man, I didn't expect to get you on the phone. It's if the guys in the group gave you my number, I'm going to answer the call, right? So, it's right on my cell phone. And, but that's, I make myself available for good people for the right reasons. So, don't be a stranger. Go to the contact us, fill it out. You'll get a link to my calendar. You can call, right? It's just between me and jiu-jitsu, and if I'm doing podcasts and interviews and whatever, I don't always answer my phone on the first call, okay? But he got me good timing, and I was in the backyard, and so I figured I'd talk. So you can text me, right? But it's better if you book a 15-minute call, send me some notes. What do you want to talk about? And I don't have calls back to back. So I have room in there if we go long. So help me help you. Deal? Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.